Ben Shapiro is responding to the looming Trump indictment here, and he's going to give his thoughts. I was actually a little surprised by what he said here because honestly, I thought he was smarter than this. Okay, so we'll listen, and then I'll give you Michael Knowles as well, and then we'll break it down.
Like what Trump knows in his bones, what his team knows, is that this indictment, if it does happen, really good for him politically. Really good for him politically. Because again, it recalibrates the race. The entire, as I've said before, the entire basis of Donald Trump's 2016 election was very simple. They hate me because they hate you. Right? The reason they're coming after me, I was their buddy. Hillary Clinton came to my wedding. Like, I was friends with all these people until the moment I declared that I was on your side. And at that moment, they began to target me, and they never stopped targeting me. Not only during the election cycle, but also during my presidency. And by the way, he was right. They did target him throughout his presidency. You had members of the FBI who were targeting him with nonsense like the Steele dossier. You had people like James Comey who were essentially bootstrapping into existence entire Russian collusion investigations based on nonsense and then leaking them to the press. You had all sorts of garbage that was just being dumped on Trump day in and day out because he was a Republican and because he didn't stand for the same principles that the New York Times wanted him to stand for. And that was a pretty good campaign. And then in 2020, Donald Trump ran a very, very poor campaign. He ran a poor campaign on COVID. He ran a poor campaign with regard to the riots. It was just a fragmentary campaign, and he lost. And then his entire campaign became, I didn't actually lose, right? And you all have to stand out there and take the bullet for me. Well, here is the thing. When he gets arrested and indicted, he's not asking anybody to take the bullet for him. At that point, everybody immediately reverts back to teams. And everybody says, well, the reason you're going after him is because this is obviously a BS case and you want him off the playing field. And so it's actually quite good for Trump, politically speaking, to be indicted. And everyone knows this. This is not any sort of secret in politics. You think his poll numbers among Republicans in a primary go up or down after he's indicted? Obviously, they go up. A lot of people immediately revert to, if the Democrats hate that guy enough that they are trying to arrest him, then probably we need to back him. Right? That is just going to be the natural consequence of this. And so the notion that Trump is going to, pay any sort of severe political price for being indicted, I think is an absolute lie. Does that mean that Trump wants to be that? No, I don't think anybody wants to be indicted. But to pretend that it's not going to have an impact on the race is silly. And again, that is the reason why there are fundraising emails that went out over the weekend for Donald Trump predicated on the indictment. Just from a political point of view, it's not a terrible thing for Donald Trump to be indicted if you are Team Trump and you want him nominated in 2024. That, again, is why the focus is now turned to what are all the Republicans saying about Donald Trump, as though their world has to revolve around whatever legal problems Donald Trump is having today.
So here's why that's really, really dumb commentary. He didn't finish the thought. So he said, hey, he's going to go up in the Republican primary polls. That is probably true. There's some evidence and some reason to believe that that's the case. Because when Mar-a-Lago was raided over the classified documents, he went up in the immediate aftermath in the Republican primary polls. What he doesn't tell you is he almost certainly is going down for the general election. Why? Because in order to win the general election, you have to win independents, moderates, center-right people, center-left people. You have to win normies, relatively apolitical normies. The people who are swing voters who at the last minute will break one way or the other. Those people are going to cut massively against Trump. Why? Because the more likely reaction is, I don't know, man, there's a lot of smoke there, so there's probably fire. The weird mental gymnastics, political jujitsu people do, actually being indicted is a good thing. Was it good for Hillary Clinton? Was it good for Hillary Clinton? Even just the talk of an indictment, right? I mean, Comey came out after the FBI investigation and basically cleared her, wrongly in my opinion. But even just the talk about legal problems, people are more likely to think where there's smoke, there's fire. Not oh, this is a political witch hunt. So what is likely to happen, he gets half the picture right. He is likely to go up among the Republican base. So for the primary, he's in a better position. But it's the paradox that the actual intelligent conservatives have woken up to many election cycles ago. The paradox is, in the Republican primaries, the more Trumpy the candidate, the more likely they win. In the general election, the more Trumpy the candidate, the more likely they lose. Under Trump as the figurehead of the party, 2018, Republicans underperformed. 2020, Republicans underperformed, Donald Trump lost. 2022 midterms was supposed to be a red wave, Republicans massively underperformed. Mitch McConnell even realizes, hey, this is kind of a problem. We're in a little bit of a pickle. The more Trumpy candidates are winning in the primary, then they get blown out in the general. Look at Carrie Lake. She was supposed to win that race by 5 points, and she lost it. Look at Doug Mastriano. He lost by like 15 points. The more Trumpy the candidate, the more stop the steal they were. Those were the ones who went down because they were Looney Tunes. Now, by the way, you know who knew this in the immediate aftermath of the midterms? Ben Shapiro. He knew. He talked about it. That's why he's so rah-rah Team DeSantis, right? He wants conservatives to win. But here he is, oh, this is going to help him politically. It's only going to help him with the Republican primary base, which even that is not 100% sure. I'd give it like 80% chance that's the case, right? And then in the general, it is very, very likely to hurt him. Imagine Ben Shapiro giving this commentary about a Democrat who was facing a looming indictment and arrest. Would he ever say, oh, this is going to really help him because it's going to, it's going to make people realize it's a political witch hunt? No. What's more likely is normies, independents, moderates are going to go, I don't know, there's a lot of talk about how Trump is corrupt and Trump's a criminal, and this sort of verifies that. Look, a lot of smoke, there's probably fire. Anyway, so now let's go to man by the name of Michael Knowles, who, by the way, there are videos floating around Twitter now. He's this like massive anti-trans, anti-gay commentator now, but there's video of him. He's a failed actor, and when he was an actor, he did these like gay sex scenes. There's a video of him on set of some show or movie where he's like pretending to deep throat a dick. Like, it's like they're all failed actors. It's amazing. Ben Shapiro, failed theater kid. Anyway, so here's Michael Knowles giving his take on the Trump indictment.
What should the Republicans do in response? I think that a Republican governor, or more precisely, I guess, a Republican attorney general, should arrest a prominent criminal lib. There is no shortage of candidates, of prominent liberal politicos who have committed crimes. Look around the Clinton circles, look around the Biden circles, look at Clinton and Biden themselves. Plenty of big criminal libs out there who have completely gotten off the hook, and there are plenty of Republican governors and attorneys general out there. I think you would need a Republican governor as well as an attorney general, because if the attorney general indicts a big prominent criminal lib, and there's a Democrat governor, the Democrat governor will apply political pressure or eventually probably just pardon the criminal lib. So I think you need to have a Republican governor there as well. But let's do it. Let's indict a big criminal lib. Let's indict two of them. They are going after our guy. Let's go after 5 of their guys. There's no risk here. Some people push back against this suggestion. They say, well, we're better than them, Michael. Sure, I think we are better than them. I'm not suggesting we do anything illegal or unjust. I'm not saying we go after an innocent lib. I'm saying we should go after a criminal lib against whom the law has not been applied.
I love how he thinks this is an own. As if, lefties are going to be like, oh no, don't arrest Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a war criminal. Hillary Clinton voted for the Iraq War. Hillary Clinton orchestrated Libya. We came, we saw, he died. Bill Clinton blew up a pharmaceutical factory in Africa, which led to God only knows how many deaths. If you're saying go after, hey, one of the Bidens, go after the Bidens for corruption or for war crimes, okay. For corruption in particular, there's a lot of smoke there, and there's fire there. And the idea that, like, actual lefties would be like, oh, no, you're going after corporate Democrats. I am so angry. Would never happen. See, that's the difference, too, right? Is that we're principled, and he's not. See, for him, it's like, oh, you're going to come after our criminal? Well, we'll come after your criminal to show you, when it's like the ideal scenario I've been calling for all along is to arrest all the war criminals and all the corrupt people. I mean, I would love it if we actually held politicians accountable for their crimes. If you get elected president of the United States, they may as well change your job description to crimes committer. Because that's what you are. You commit endless crimes. So, I was going to say this is like authoritarian or whatever, but it's kind of not. Because he does say, hey, don't go after the innocent ones. Okay, based. So Bernie Sanders won't be getting arrested. Lovely. If you went after him, then we'd have an argument on our hands because he's not the problem, right? He's not a criminal. But like, I would immediately make the deal. You want to make it? I'll make a deal right now with Michael Knowles. You ready? I'll trade you Hunter Biden. We could arrest Hunter Biden right now. And I'm sure you could build a rock solid case with somebody who actually knew what they were doing and came with the evidence, because he is corrupt. He did do pay to play, right? He did use his dad's name to cash in. Everybody knows that. I'll trade you Hunter Biden for Jared Kushner. We arrest Hunter Biden and Jared Kushner, and we bring them up on corruption charges, or whatever we can get them on. You know, just like with got Al Capone on tax evasion, right? Like, get them on whatever you can get them on, but they're both criminals. They got to go down. Now, my guess is, actually, I don't know. I shouldn't say. I'll just leave it up to him, right? I think maybe he will say yes, right? But the sense I get is that Michael Knowles would rather have Trump not arrested, and then also, like, don't arrest whatever Democratic politician criminals there are. I mean, ideally, he'd obviously prefer just arrest the Democratic criminals and leave our Republican criminals alone. That's probably his ideal. But, I mean, my ideal is quite the opposite. Arrest all the criminals. So, like, that's the thing. I really don't like it when people, oh, look at the precedent this sets. Look at the precedent this sets. The precedents of holding people accountable for their crimes, for justice actually being blind, for justice not bending and, you know, abiding by the whims of the powerful. That's good. That's good. Now, the counter argument is, oh my God, but then, like, what if, you know, the criminal justice system, it just becomes a political football for partisan witch hunts? And it's like, that's possible, but is that really any worse than what we have now, which is everybody gets to commit their crimes, get away with it as long as they're part of the elite class? I would argue that's actually worse, right? Like, you can never be held accountable no matter what if you're powerful. That's worse, and that's definitely what we have right now. George W. Bush and Dick Cheney are war criminals. And they're, you know, George W. Bush is somewhere painting in Texas or some shit, right? Like, I would much rather have a situation where we try to uphold the law fairly. And if there comes instances where people are overstepping and they are doing political witch hunts, then we'll evaluate the evidence at the time and we'll fight back against it. But I would much rather have a situation, and that's really what I think that's also the implied part of what Knowles is saying here, right? It's like, if you go after one of our guys, we go after 5 of yours. So I don't think he's going to be a stickler for let's get the actual criminals. I do feel like he probably would play it very loose with his standards when going after Democrats, in the same way that, like, when they talk about impeaching Biden, they bring up all the dumbest things that make zero sense to impeach Biden. Like, oh, let's impeach him over open borders. He doesn't have an open border. He's continuing a lot of the Trump policies on the border, which are very conservative policies. You know what I mean? So anyway, you guys get the gist of it, but man, they're going to melt down over Trump getting arrested. When, I mean, I've never seen a guy who's more willing of getting arrested than Donald Trump. He's committed like 17 crimes. And like, they get him on one that's not one of the worst ones, right? And they're still melting down. I mean, I can't imagine being this much of a cuck for the powerful. You know, I can't imagine giving somebody a total pass this much because they're on my side. And I think Michael Knowles really believes Trump should not go down for his crimes. Okay, but you got a really, really weak argument to make there, and that's pretty clear. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.